Sage Wanderer here, coming at you from my shotgun shack in the Texas Outback. So I wanted to make this video kind of as a proof of life, since it's been a few days since I made a video. But I also wanted to share with you what's going on with me and do something that I've never really done before. So I don't claim to be a prophet, but I do claim to be a Christian who hears the voice of God, like many Christians claim. And I started hearing from God about this coronavirus around February 2nd. God spoke to me, and he started telling me that I needed to buy food, buy food, buy food. And also that I shouldn't go to work. And part of that, I believe, is because my job primarily existed for the purpose of delivering food to people at home, and many of them were homesick from work. So that's why they didn't get their own food. They didn't feel like it. And so I was delivering to sick people a lot, business people and just regular people, college students who were homesick. And that to reduce my risk of getting this, that it was important for me to not work, and that I shouldn't worry about money. God was going to take care of me. And if you know me and you know this channel, you know that's one of my sayings. God takes care of me. And so anyway, I was hearing from God to buy food, buy food, buy food. So I had a small emergency fund set aside for emergencies. And I started making purchases, and I started sharing with you on this channel that you should as well start preparing for the coronavirus. When I first started talking about this, most people were not taking it seriously. And now many people, if not all people, are recognizing this as a global pandemic. And it is spread from the four corners of the earth. And almost no place in the world is completely devoid of this virus. Now, I have been sharing with you in my postings for quite some time now, in my written posts here on YouTube, that vitamin D might help alleviate or prevent some of the complications with the virus. It can't stop you from getting the virus, but it might keep you out of the hospital. But there are various studies and doctors who have come to the conclusion that vitamin D is a great preventative for viral pneumonia complications. And that's essentially what COVID is. It's viral pneumonia. So in people over 50, over 60, you start to get in the danger zone there. And that one of the things you can do to up your odds is take a large dose, not large dose, a moderate dose of vitamin D3. And I presented to you some links to some studies and so forth, which leads me to believe that this virus will probably decline as the daylight hours and the temperatures warm up, because it causes people to go outside. And, when the weather's nice, you want to get out there and be in it. And then your body creates vitamin D from the sun. But you can also take supplements, like I take InfoWars supplement, Midnight Sun. And I've been taking that for a couple years, since I already have issues with low vitamin D. And so anyway, I believe, and my predictions are that this will diminish somewhat through the summer months, but then, just like the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, it will come back with a vengeance in the fall. And so God told me to buy food so that I could stay isolated and prevent the possibility of me contracting the virus. As many of you know, if you can catch the virus a second time, and if you do, it's actually more deadly, from what I've heard. So I want to avoid getting this the first time, and that's assuming that whatever I got in Virginia wasn't the coronavirus, because I did have a presentation of extreme body aches, high fever, and then diarrhea, and the thing kept going away and coming back, and going away and coming back, and I'd go days with no fever and then have another fever. And this is part of the COVID virus. And so a small percentage of people don't present with lung issues. They present with gastrointestinal issues, which is what my flu was like. And maybe it was a completely different flu. But either way, I wasn't I wasn't ready to get sick again, and I don't want to get sick again. And so I stayed home from work the entire month of February, and I've used up most of my emergency fund. I had a small emergency fund, since I work on my my job was driving, and it relied on my vehicle. I kept a small amount of money set back in case I had a mechanical failure in the vehicle and needed repairs. So I spent that money on food to last me 3 months, and I have been basically I've become a hermit. I'm not leaving the house, excuse me, except to go every once in a while to town, and I'm very careful when I go to town to not interact with people. And I'm getting water from a water vending machine. Essentially, it's a water kiosk, a giant water filter kiosk setup, and I think it's the safest way to get water without engaging with the public. And unlike other people who are just stockpiling water in case the water's turned off, I don't have a well or a water source, and I carry water all the time in 7-gallon jugs, which has turned me into a He-Man. I've done more for my upper body carrying water over the past year than I did in a lifetime of pumping iron. And even at my age, I'm putting on upper body muscle mass. But anyway, back to the point of this video. In the month of February, the message I was getting from God was buy food, buy food, buy food, stay away from people, and buy food. And I think it was to buy food so I can stay away from people, because it is going to get worse before it gets better. Now, it may not get that bad in the South since spring has sprung here. And we're starting to see evidence in China that the virus is on the retreat there. And I believe it's because in China, in parts of China, it's a big country, but in the southern portions of China, spring has sprung. And I watched several, and I did before all this. I used to, for a while, I've watched YouTubers out of China, American expatriates who live there, because I was curious what life was like in communist China. So these folks who have been under lockdown now are being let out. The weather's turned nice in different parts of China, and some of these YouTubers are showing that the businesses are opening up again. So all of this in line with the information I've already provided for you, that vitamin D is possibly a preventative for some complications, that the sunshine is your best source of vitamin D. And so the sun's out in China, and it's driving back the virus. But I believe, just like the pandemic of the Spanish flu in 1918, it came on in the spring, just like it did here. It came on in February. Then it died back during the summer, and it only had outbreaks in the southern hemisphere where it was winter there. And then it came back in the fall with a vengeance, and it was so deadly in the fall of 1918, 102 years ago. So once I had the food put up, then I was kind of like, okay, now what? We're just going to wait it out. And then the message changed that I was getting from God, from buy food, buy food, buy food, to plant, 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 plant. I'd wake up in the middle of the night going, plant, plant, plant. So I've been, I have 8.5 acres here. But what I don't have is a rototiller. What I don't have is a mule. Radar's getting big as a mule, but I can't train. I don't know if I can train him to pull a plow or not. So I'm doing farm work by hand, and with hand tools. And so I've been turning over as much dirt as I can. So far, I've got lettuce in the ground. I've got green onions in the ground, and I put my onion sets in just before this last rain a couple days ago. Now, I have all of the seeds set aside. I purchased that during the buy food phase of this. And I've been, so I have the seeds. I may need to go to town for a few things, but I'm going to be super, super careful. But for the most part, I'm completely isolating myself. And, there's more to this that I know. That at this point, I'm not really authorized to share with you. But I will say this. If you want to know where this thing is headed, look again at the Denver airport mural and see all of the children in the mural mourning over the death of their parents. And you will understand why these kind of diseases that target the old may be part of the Agenda 21 depopulation plot that could be very well going on right now from the four corners of the earth. So I guess I'm making this video to urge you to do what you can to plant, plant, plant. If you have land, put in large plantings of food that can be stored through the winter. Because if the pandemic worsens, in the spring, we may not get our crops in. If it comes on early in the fall, we may not get the crops that we put in harvested and delivered in time and processed for the general public's use over the winter next winter. And if we manage to make it through, uh, you know, this year, then the following spring, the spring of 2021, we may not be able to put in crops then because we've had a loss of workers and breakdown of society to some degree. So, maybe God just wants me to go back to the old ways, but I feel like that this is an important part of preparing for the end times, is to know how to grow your own food. If you don't have a lot of land and you live in the city, plow up, rototill up your yard and your landscaping and put in edible plants instead. Put in a vegetable garden on any available space you have. If you live in an apartment complex and you live in a small space, look online and learn how to grow things in containers indoors. Get yourself a grow light and learn how to grow indoors. Use your window light and your patio to grow container plants. You can plant in milk jugs, in 2-liter containers. You can plant in Walmart sacks, and there's lots of great information online showing you how to do that very sort of thing. So I'm making this video to urge you that we are indeed in a epic time in history, and I think that the cure for a 21st century pandemic might very well be 19th century skills. So learn what we have forgotten, relearn what society has forgotten, and learn once again how to grow and preserve your own food, because we are seeing, especially in China, the marketplaces in China are shut down unless you can prove that you haven't traveled to infected areas, and you do that with your phone. So if you even want to get into the neighborhood where the stores are, where the grocery stores are in China, you have to present your phone so that they can prove through tracking you that you and your phone have not left the province, or they won't let you in. And there's multiple layers of this. There's a checkpoint to get into the part of town that has the stores. There's a checkpoint at the stores, and there's another checkpoint when you purchase. And so there are strict rules there, and that kind of electronic technological control could very well be used in America and Europe to control the outbreak of this pandemic, either this year or later on this year in the fall, when I think it's going to be even worse. So my job is kind of a no-go. I may go back to work driving Uber in the summer if the threat completely vanishes. Other than that, I'm going to have to learn to survive as a sustenance farmer, and hopefully I'll get enough help from some of my more wealthy and established viewers who can afford to help me. If you can't afford to help me, if you struggle, don't send me a dime, not one red cent. Don't even waste money on a postage stamp. Just email me if you want to talk to me. But if you have enough, if God puts it on your heart to help me, you can send your help to P.O. Box 2915, Weatherford, Texas 76086. And because some things you can't grow, and also I have to keep paying taxes. I have to keep the lights on as long as I can, and I'm always buying water. And I'm also trying to raise money for a rototiller, so I have 8.5 acres, and I'll be lucky to get a half acre planted with just my two hands and my back and shovels and hand tools and rakes and whatnot. So I really need a rototiller, and I really need a sand point, so I can a sand point drill, which is something I can purchase online and have shipped to me, that I could use to potentially dig a shallow well for watering my crops. Otherwise, I'm going to continue carrying water for my crops. So anyway, wanted to make this quick video and impress upon you the importance of becoming self-sufficient. The supply chains got interrupted during this pandemic, and it may get worse before it gets better. All of the mathematical equations seem to say that by May 8th, if we don't get a break from the weather, if we don't get some help from the vitamin D that comes from the sunshine here, that this spread, if it continues like it is, by May 8th, every hospital bed in America will be filled with sick patients, and any new ones will have to wait in the hall or go home to suffer their fate without help of medical intervention. So this is going to continue to get worse until May unless we get a break from the weather. And the experts are split on whether that's going to happen or not. We can't really rely on it. But either way, this will probably come back in the fall. It's not going to completely go away. And so we're going to be faced with this same sort of issue come November. So, and also we will talk a whole video about how this would affect the the elections of November. But by next fall, this is going to be back with a vengeance. And a lot of the preps that you're making now won't be available to you in the fall because you've used them or they've expired or whatever, unless you've got long-term food storage. Not everyone can afford that. But, you know, prepping and storing food is a short-term solution, because if once your preps run out, if food isn't available, I mean, sooner or later, if things keep getting bad in the world, then you're going to have to learn how to grow your own food as long as the weather can cooperate. You can still do that as long as you've got sunshine, water, and dirt. So at any rate, if you want to help me out to get a rototiller, that would be great. Leave your comments in the comment section below on this topic. Do you think this thing is going to blow over? I really don't care to hear from you if you're still in the crowd that thinks this is a hoax. This is not a hoax. I got people on the West Coast who are at the epicenter of this in Oregon. Many of you know I have connections in Oregon. And if you think this is a hoax, tell that to the 16 or 17 dead people at the nursing home in Seattle. This thing is deadly. It's very contagious. It's probably man-made. It doesn't really matter whether it's man-made or not. We're going to have to deal with it either way. And eventually, even if you manage to survive the disease itself, you're going to have to deal with the disruptions in our system, which is basically all you got to do is watch all the crazy people at Costco fighting over toilet paper. I don't know why they think they need so much toilet paper. You only need toilet paper if you've got food to eat, because if you don't have food to eat, nothing's coming out the other side. I guess you could eat the toilet paper. I don't know. I look at some of those people and I'm like, hey, lady, do you realize in that cart you've got a year's supply of toilet paper, but you probably only got a month's supply of food? I guess their biggest fear is to be without toilet paper. Hey, I grew up being poor. We used to use newspaper and paper bags, but I guess there's not any newspapers or paper bags anymore. So anyway, that was a weird sidestep. But I wanted to talk to you guys, and specifically, I wanted to share with you that I believe that God's been telling me personally to plant, plant, plant. So it's the only true way to protect yourself against a supply chain disruption. And if you rely on the stores for your food, then you're relying on the system. And it looks to me like by hook or by crook, one way or the other, the system is in danger of breaking down. If it's not this, then it's a natural disaster. If it's not that, then it's a war. But something will cause the system to break down. And only those of you who know how to plant and raise food will be truly secure in knowing that you have something to eat one day from one day to the next. So this is my solemn warning. I did hear from God for me. He did tell me to share this with you, to share the phrase plant, plant, plant. If you haven't got food stored up, you're almost out of time to get food stored up before this gets worse over the next 2 months in the United States. But if you have food put up, then spend your time home instead of biting your nails and watching the news. Spend your time learning how to become a sustenance farmer. It can be done. And you know, if you live in a community where everybody's doing this, then there'll be enough diversity that you can engage in basic barter and trade to get all the things that you need from those that are prepared and over-prepared, perhaps. And I'll probably do some more videos about the effect on the economy, but it could also put many of us out of work. I know that if you're under lockdown and you work in the food service industry, then you're not working. And most people can't afford to not work. And I only can afford to not work because I had the bigger picture when I came out here a year ago to set it up so I could live on little or no money. And, you know, I could basically survive on the very smallest amount of money. because I don't have to pay rent. If they, I pay my electric bill, but my house is so tiny that I don't use a lot of electricity, and I have solar panels that can kind of run my house, at least keep the basic necessities running, just from solar power. So, I can only stop working now because I don't have huge expenses, and I don't love money, and I don't need to like shop for gadgets, and I don't have to have the latest phone, and I don't have to have the highest technology. I know how to get by with less. It's one of the Marine Corps mottos: doing more with less. I learned that from the old Marine, so I'm pretty good at that. But it would be nice if I got some help with the rototiller. I guess new ones cost $400 to $600. $599 is would assure I could get a rototiller. But if only I got a couple $100, I could get a used one probably. But anyway, maybe I just need to dig. I've been digging so much. I took my whole right hand out for a while. I was down for 3 days with a messed up wrist from digging with the shovel. But after a couple of days of rest, by the third day, I was back at digging. So it's just making me stronger. But at any rate, look out for your family because nobody else is. Look out for yourself because the country won't look out for you. The government isn't going to do anything but restrict your movement. They're not going to do anything to help you. And they've publicly said that if you want a vaccination or a test or any of that, you're going to have to pay for it. It's not free. There's nothing free in America. And so, yeah, I just hope that you heed the advice and get ahead of this thing. And may God save our republic.